At his Mar-a-Lago rally, former President Donald Trump stunned both his team and viewers nationwide with an unexpected detour from his prepared remarks. What was supposed to be a standard campaign speech quickly turned into a passionate monologue about boxing and about Terrence. Crawford's stunning victory over Canelo Alvarez just 3 days earlier, 18 million people had tuned in, expecting Trump to focus on the tightening race against Vice President Warren with topics like the economy, immigration, and his second-term agenda. Instead, Trump veered completely off script. "I watched that fight Saturday night," he began, gesturing animatedly. "Canelo's a tremendous fighter, a great champion. I know him, he's been to my properties." But what Crawford did was something special, something truly American. In the production truck, the campaign's digital director buried his face in his hands. None of this had appeared on the teleprompter. On stage, Trump's energy built as he drew parallels between Crawford's triumph and his own political narrative. "Crawford has something these politicians don't. He delivers on his promises. Last week, I watched him dismantle Canelo, a Mexican champion everyone said couldn't be beaten. He moved up 2 weight classes, too. They said he was too small. Said it couldn't be done. Sound familiar?" The crowd erupted, sensing the metaphor. Trump pressed on. "You won't hear this from the fake news," he said, lowering his voice. "Crawford's from Omaha, Nebraska. Not exactly a boxing hotbed, but he didn't make excuses. Didn't say I'm from the wrong place. He just worked harder. That's what America's about." By now, campaign manager Tyler Harrison was frantically signaling to cut the feed, but Trump ignored him. "And let me tell you something else," he continued, his tone shifting. "The media loves to divide us, always talking about race. But did you see what happened after that fight? 2 champions, 1 black, 1 Mexican, embracing with total respect. That's the real America. Not what the radical left wants you to see." Back in Washington, aides rushed to brief President Cortez on the remarks as political strategists scrambled to assess the fallout. In key swing states like Arizona and Nevada, where Canelo is a beloved figure among Mexican-American voters, Trump's off-the-cuff commentary was already sending shockwaves through the campaign. But Trump wasn't finished, and what he said next would dominate headlines across the nation. "You know who should really be paying attention to what Crawford did?" he asked, pausing for effect. "The black community in this country." Crawford didn't wait for government programs. He didn't blame the system. He just kept working, kept winning, kept breaking barriers. And now look at him. He just bought a $9 million mansion in Omaha, employs people from his old neighborhood. That's real progress, folks. Real solutions, not the same tired excuses. An audible gasp swept through the press section. The campaign's communications director closed her eyes, already mentally drafting damage control statements. But Trump, either unaware or unconcerned by the tension, continued. "I've said it for years. What do black Americans have to lose by trying something new, by voting for me? Crawford showed us what opportunity, independence, and hard work can do. Those are American values. And when I'm president again, I'm inviting him to the White House on day 1. I'll ask him to lead a presidential commission on athletic excellence and community development." The crowd, initially hesitant, erupted into cheers. On social media, hashtags like "Sas Trump Crawford" and "Sa Das Asasa" and "Eadba White House Crawfordy" exploded across platforms. Fox News broke into immediate analysis, with commentators praising Trump's cultural savvy and ability to connect with non-traditional voters. MSNBC offered a starkly different take, one analyst calling the remarks racially charged and a troubling attempt to appropriate a black athlete's success for political gain. In Nebraska, Crawford's camp was caught completely off guard. The boxer, still recovering from his grueling bout with Canelo Alvarez, was unreachable for comment, having taken his family on a private vacation. By evening, the story had evolved far beyond boxing or politics. It had become a national debate about race, representation, and political exploitation. CNN quickly convened a panel of sports commentators, political analysts, and civil rights leaders to unpack Trump's remarks. "What's striking here," noted strategist Alexandra Morgan, is how Trump turned a boxing match into a metaphor for his entire worldview. He's framing Crawford as the embodiment of self-made American success, while casting Canelo, a Mexican champion, as a stand-in for the challenges he claims the country must overcome. It's political theater at its most deliberate. Former heavyweight champion and activist Mike Tyson also weighed in via phone. Trump's always been around boxing. People forget he hosted fights at his casinos back in the day, Tyson said. But this is different. He's using Crawford's achievement for politics, and I'm not sure Terrence would appreciate that. What Crawford did was about greatness in the ring, not politics. As night fell, social media continued to blaze with reactions. Conservative voices praised Trump's straight talk and his ability to connect sports with patriotism, while progressives denounced his remarks as racially insensitive and opportunistic. Inside Mar-a-Lago, Trump's senior team gathered for an emergency meeting. Early polling showed mixed results. Strong approval from his base, outrage from opponents, and surprising curiosity from independents and sports fans who rarely engaged in politics. The media will twist this into some kind of racial controversy, Trump said, scanning the headlines on his iPad. But the truth is, people get it. They see what I'm saying about hard work, winning, and America believing in itself again. Americans understand exactly what I'm saying, Trump declared, leaning back in his chair. Crawford is the perfect example of what I've been talking about, an American success story that proves the system works if you work hard enough. Campaign strategist Rebecca Winters hesitated before speaking. Mr. President, maybe we should consider toning down some of the comparisons between Crawford's victory over a Mexican champion and your immigration policies. It's starting to sound, walk it back? Trump interrupted, incredulous. Are you kidding me? This is gold. This connects with regular Americans, the ones who watch sports, not just politics. Crawford just became the first man in history to be undisputed champion in 3 weight classes. You know how many people watched that fight on Netflix? 41 million. You know how many watched the last debate? 12. We're finally talking to the people who actually decide elections. The meeting stretched late into the night. But one question hung in the air. How would Terrence Crawford respond to being pulled into America's political storm? As dawn broke over Nebraska, Crawford's phone buzzed relentlessly. Hundreds of missed calls, thousands of notifications. His brief media blackout during a family getaway had left him completely unaware of the chaos swirling around his name. What the hell? He muttered, scrolling through headlines. Trump uses Crawford victory to attack Mexican immigrants. Fox News. Trump praises Crawford as model for Black America. ESPN. Boxing champion unwittingly thrust into presidential campaign. Moments later, his manager burst into the lakeside cabin, out of breath. Terrence, we need to respond. The White House just called, and so did Trump's people. Everyone wants to know which side you're on. Crawford set his phone down slowly, a cold anger settling in. I'm on boxing's side, he said evenly. Always have been, and I'm about to make that very clear. By morning, the country woke to a political landscape transformed. Every major news outlet led with the story. Analysts scrambled to gauge the electoral impact, while social media erupted into partisan warfare. Through it all, the man at the center of the firestorm, Terrence Crawford, remained silent. At 7:42 a.m. Eastern, President Cortez addressed the situation during an economic briefing. Terrence Crawford's victory was historic and worth celebrating, she said carefully. His achievement reflects the excellence and determination that define the American spirit. I think we can honor that without turning it into a political weapon. When pressed about Trump's remarks, she added, I'm not going to respond to every campaign trail comment. The American people can decide for themselves. Behind the scenes, however, the White House was uneasy. Internal polling showed Trump's speech resonating with unexpected audiences, particularly sports fans who rarely engaged with politics. His framing of Crawford's triumph as a metaphor for American grit was cutting through traditional partisan divides. Meanwhile, at the secluded lakeside cabin in northern Minnesota, Crawford's quiet retreat was officially over. His 48-hour media blackout had protected him from the frenzy until now. And as the calls kept coming, one thing was certain. The next move belonged to him. Crawford had no idea that his name was dominating political headlines across the nation. At 8:17 a.m. Central Time, as his children played by the lake and his wife prepared breakfast, he finally switched his phone back on after 2 days of silence. Within seconds, it exploded with notifications, hundreds of missed calls, thousands of social media tags, and a flood of texts from athletes, friends, relatives, and reporters all demanding his response to Trump's remarks. "What the hell?" Crawford muttered, scrolling through the headlines that made his stomach tighten. CNN. Trump uses Crawford victory to attack Mexican immigrants. Fox News. Trump praises Crawford as model for Black America. ESPN. Boxing champion unwittingly thrust into presidential campaign. Sports Illustrated. Crawford silent as political storm rages around historic victory. Moments later, his longtime manager, Brian Bomac McIntyre, burst through the cabin door, having driven through the night after realizing Crawford might check his phone unexpectedly. "Terrence, we need to respond," McIntyre said, out of breath. "The White House just called, and so did Trump's team. Everyone wants to know where you stand." Crawford set his phone down, a cold anger rising in his chest. "I'm on boxing's side," he said quietly. "Always have been, and I'm about to make that very clear." As Crawford and his team rushed to arrange a flight back to Omaha, both political machines sprang into overdrive. Trump's campaign released selectively edited clips of his rally, highlighting his praise for Crawford while toning down the racial undertones. Meanwhile, Democratic strategists circulated the more controversial excerpts, especially those comparing Canelo's defeat to Trump's border rhetoric. In Guadalajara, Canelo Alvarez, still recovering from the grueling fight, found himself unwillingly pulled into the same political storm. Mexico's President López Obrador condemned Trump's use of the match for anti-Mexican messaging, but Canelo struck a more measured tone when speaking to ESPN Deportes. "This fight was about boxing, not politics," he said. "Crawford won because he was better that night. I respect him as a champion. Politicians should leave our sport alone." By midday, the story had expanded far beyond Trump's original comments, sparking nationwide debates about the intersection of sports, race, and politics. Cable news shows ran wall-to-wall coverage. Political pundits dissected Trump's rhetoric, while sports analysts, clearly out of their element, struggled to make sense of the situation. Social media, meanwhile, amplified the most extreme reactions from both sides, turning the controversy into a cultural flashpoint. At 2:30 p.m. Eastern, Trump doubled down during an interview with Fox News, defending his statements. "Look, what I said about Crawford is what millions of Americans are thinking," he insisted. "Here's a guy from a small city in the middle of the country who didn't make excuses, didn't ask for handouts, just worked harder than everyone else and achieved the impossible. That's the American dream. And yes, his victory over Canelo shows exactly what this country needs to do. Take on giants. Beat the odds and make America the undisputed champion again." When pressed about the racial implications of his comments, Trump grew visibly agitated. "That's exactly the problem with this country," he said. "I praise a black athlete for his greatness, talk about him as a role model, even suggest giving him a national role, and somehow I'm the one making it about race. The radical left are the ones obsessed with race, not me." As the interview wrapped up, Fox anchor Brett Baier noted that Crawford had yet to comment publicly. "I think he'll be pleased," Trump said with a confident grin. "I'm saying what people in the sports world are afraid to say. Terrence Crawford might just be the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time. Greater than Floyd Mayweather. Greater than Sugar Ray Robinson. I recognize greatness, always have," Trump concluded confidently. At Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where crews were still cleaning up after Saturday's historic fight, the political firestorm had already reshaped Terrence Crawford's legacy. Gift shops reported a surge in sales of Crawford merchandise as both sides of the political divide rushed to claim his image. Trump supporters bought Crawford gear as a symbol of hard work and American grit, while opponents did the same to reclaim his achievement from what they viewed as political exploitation. Meanwhile, back in Minnesota, Crawford sat on the deck of his lakeside cabin with his wife and management team, carefully discussing how to respond. Known for his precision both inside and outside the ring, he understood that whatever he said next would define not just this controversy, but a crucial moment in his career. "I need to address this myself," Crawford said firmly. "No scripted statements. No press release. I want to speak directly to the people, on camera." His longtime publicist advised waiting until they returned to Omaha, where they could better manage the message and environment. Crawford shook his head. "This can't wait. Every hour I stay silent, someone else is out there speaking for me." At 4:15 p.m. Central Time, Crawford went live on Instagram from his cabin deck. The setting was simple. No production crew, no teleprompter, just a champion speaking his truth. Within minutes, more than 1.2 million viewers joined as the stream was picked up by major news outlet. "I've just had one of the biggest victories of my career," Crawford began, his voice calm but resolute. "I moved up 2 weight classes to defeat a great champion, Canelo Alvarez. I made history as the first male fighter to become undisputed champion in 3 divisions. That's what I want to be talking about today." He paused, his expression tightening. "Instead, I turn on my phone and see my name being used in political debates that have nothing to do with boxing. I've spent my whole career letting my actions in the ring speak for themselves. I've never been about politics or division. I'm about excellence, hard work, and respect for the sport." Leaning closer to the camera, Crawford's tone grew firmer. "So let me be very clear. I don't endorse any politician using my name, my achievements, or my fight with Canelo to score political points. Boxing is one of the few things that still brings people together. When I fight, I don't represent a political party. I represent Omaha, Nebraska. I represent American boxing. I represent my family, my fans, and everyone who believed in me." As he spoke, the viewer count continued to climb. News networks cut into regular programming to air the live stream. Crawford continued, "I have nothing but respect for Canelo Alvarez. He's a warrior who has represented Mexico with pride and honor. Our fight wasn't about nationality or race. It was about 2 champions testing themselves and showing what's possible in this sport." Comments flooded the screen in real time, some praising Crawford's composure and integrity, others criticizing him for not taking a stronger political stance. "I'm going to keep focusing on my legacy in boxing," Crawford concluded. "I appreciate everyone who supported me, but please understand, I step into the ring as a boxer, not as a political symbol. That's all I have to say." He ended the live stream without taking questions. Within minutes, clips of his remarks were being edited and shared across platforms, each political side framing his words to fit its own agenda. At Trump campaign headquarters, the communications team scrambled to draft a statement, acknowledging Crawford's comments while preserving their narrative of alignment with his American success story. Democratic strategists moved just as quickly, framing Crawford's words as a subtle but firm rejection of Trump's rhetoric. By evening, the controversy was far from over. If anything, Crawford's heartfelt attempt to stay above the political fray had deepened the debate, transforming a boxing triumph into a flashpoint in America's ongoing struggle over sports, race, and representation.